This is the 1820 Chockoyotte Aqueduct on the Roanoke Canal. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution. It was actually built between 1820 and 1824, and it was later modified. And you can kind of see those modifications and changes as we go along. Let's take a closer look.
Built near the downriver end of the 9-mile-long Roanoke Canal in Weldon, North Carolina, this aqueduct has evolved a lot over the years, and not in the way anyone expected. The Roanoke Canal, built about 100 miles or 160 kilometers up the Roanoke River from the Atlantic Ocean, was only about 9 miles long, but it was the critical link that had to be added to open up hundreds of miles of river navigation upriver from here. Here, the Roanoke Rapids made further navigation too dangerous or even impossible for the commercial boats of the time called Bateaux. Check out my video on the canal and the Bateaux for more information. Both are linked in the description. This aqueduct was the only one on the canal. When first built, the aqueduct was designed to carry the 3-foot deep or 1 meter deep canal across the Chockoyotte Creek. But plans were already in place, even before construction began, to deepen the entire canal to 15 feet or 4 meters to allow for much bigger boats. At the time, the boats which were being used on the river, especially the upper river, were basically overgrown flat-bottom canoes called bateaux. They were well suited for the river in this area. They'd each carry about 5 to 8 tons of cargo, and they could be pulled along the river or rowed in the deeper areas. Being the pre-Civil War South, of course, this labor was done by enslaved people. The original aqueduct arch, 3-foot deep channel, towpath, and approaches were built for these bateaux, and even today, more than 2 centuries later, you can still see the amazing quality and durability of this stonework. The arch is 30 feet or 9 meters long, 35 feet or about 10 meters high, and it sits 22 feet or about 7 meters above the water surface. The canal within the aqueduct was 18 feet or about 5 meters wide. There was more here than that, though, since they also needed a towpath. So the overall width, including the massive stone walls and the towpath, was 29 feet or about 9 meters wide. You can see the curved wing walls on the approach. The canal itself was 40 feet or 12 meters wide. Then it had to narrow down to fit the aqueduct. This is pretty common for aqueducts, with locks and aqueducts typically only being just wide enough for one boat. The bateaux we used here were actually much more narrow than the typical canal boats you're probably used to, so 2 could probably pass in the aqueduct if the boatmen were careful. With the planned expansion of the canal, though, which would have allowed for much larger boats, such as those used on the Erie Canal, that would have meant that a single canal boat would have just fit the locks and the aqueduct. In 1833, not long after the canal opened, the railroad arrived, and in 1834, the wooden locks at the downriver end of the canal, which were built of wood instead of stone to save money, washed out in a flood, ending through navigation on the canal. Surprisingly, canal navigation actually survived this, since the railroad initially connected to the boat basin just above the washed-out locks. So the canal and the aqueduct here remained in use. Over the next 50 years, the canal's navigation traffic fell, but the canal's use didn't drop off. Even without navigation, various mills and a power plant were built using the canal's water. So in 1885, although there hadn't been a canal boat through here in a decade, the canal and the aqueduct were actually expanded.
So when the canal here was first built, the canal was built for navigation only, and it was intended to be initially 3 feet deep, with the possibility of later actually extending that to 15 feet to handle larger vessels. If you look at this wall, you have these smooth stones at the bottom, and that's the original stone with the original build that was here to handle the navigation part. Now, navigation actually pretty much ended by 1875, but the canal actually kept being used. Check out the video on the canal for more details on how it was used. But it's basically used to generate electricity and to run mills. Well, they wanted more water. They had mills at both ends. The electrical generation was upriver, but they did have mills down below here, and they wanted to get more water to them. So they actually added another 4 feet of canal depth up here. So the aqueduct could then handle 7 feet of water. A little short of the 15 they wanted, but at the same time, upriver, that's where they were pulling out the electrical generation. That's where they were pulling out some of the mills. So they didn't really need the whole 15 feet down here. So they had 7 feet, and you can actually see very clearly where that change took place.
Flooding damaged the canal, and the repairs weren't always up to the original standards, as you can see from this downriver wing wall. The original almost certainly would have been the same graceful curve as the upriver wing walls, and certainly would have shared the same quality workmanship. So these repairs, while obviously functional, as they've lasted for decades here, really lacked the graceful beauty of the original workmanship. Unfortunately, even use of the canal for water power didn't last. In 1902, industry, which had operated mills along the canal for decades, had mostly either closed down or converted to electrical power, and this section of the canal was closed and drained, leaving the aqueduct dry for the first time in nearly a century. Today, instead of canal boats, the aqueduct carries hikers and bikers on the 9-mile, 15-kilometer-long Roanoke Canal Trail. It's one of only 2 original structures to survive from the original canal, and, in my opinion, it's the most beautiful.
So looking at this aqueduct, you can see several different generations of work, it seems. You have, first of all, the really nice quality work for the stonework for the arch, the main arch itself. And that's critical. If your arch is sloppy, it collapses. That has to be top quality work. And clearly it is. This has lasted over 200 years. Now, beyond that, you have the first layer of canal that gave you your 3-foot level of water. That was completed at the same time. Looks a little rougher. The stones are still dressed. They still look okay. Then above that, that was put in the 1890s. Much rougher. There's no more navigation on the canal by that point. This was really just to move water down to mills that are downriver from here. So you didn't put quite so much effort into it. And finally, this wing wall over here, that's like badly patched up and just sort of there. And that was actually, that collapsed in the 1910s and again in the 1920s due to flooding. Flooding's always a major problem on canals. The last time this was repaired, maybe they didn't bring in quite the quality of stonemason they had for the original arch. But actually, I'm not upset by that, because you can look at this and you can see how these structures evolved. You see, the original structure and the 2 levels of stonework that were required on that original structure to make it work. You see the expansion above it and the lesser quality there because the quality didn't really matter as much. There's no reason to dress out those stones. You're just moving water. You don't have to worry about boats anymore. And finally, you have this other wall over here. It's just kind of, random repair just because we needed a wing wall over there. So this was a critical part of the Roanoke Canal while it was in operation for navigation. It was a critical part to provide water to all the mills down canal of here before it reconnects to the Roanoke River. And because of that, the Chockoyotte Aqueduct here, this is the Industrial Revolution.
Hey, wait just a second before you go. I need your help to keep the channel growing here. First thing you can do is really easy.
Just like, subscribe, share this video. Tell all your friends about it. That spreads the word. YouTube will see that and we'll show this to more people. Commenting more than just 2 or 3 words. YouTube says that's the most important thing you can get. It's the best kind of user interaction there is. So you can comment more than just 2 or 3 words. Also, if you're able to and are interested in helping out financially, these are pretty expensive videos to film, a lot of travel costs on top of the hours of work I do here. You can help out at patreon.com/Industrial Revolution, or become a member here on YouTube, or a single contribution through Super Thanks. Also have an affiliate store. If you click that, anything you buy there, a percentage of that purchase will come to help fund the channel. Thanks for your help, and look forward to seeing you next week.